recorded in front of a live studio audience. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of FMburgh, the Pittsburgh FileMaker developer group. Glad that you are able to join us. Here is our agenda for this evening. You should see we have a great presentation coming up. Then we'll also do some wrap-up discussion, talk a little bit about Engage that just happened here last month, look at a few announcements and future dates. For tonight's presentation, we are pleased to welcome Vince Menanno from Beezwax to the virtual podium. He is going to take us on a guided tour of InspectorPro 8. And without further ado, let's turn it over to Vince.
First off, thank you for having me. And this presentation is about the forthcoming release of InspectorPro, which is version 8. This version, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so this version, it's always kind of themed around certain things, but basically the theme has been focusing on performance, insight, and collaboration. And because we're a large team at Beezwax, we need tools like this. So this is part of our process. I would say this changes everything, but maybe not everything, but a lot, as you will see. So I've been with Beezwax. I'm a Chief Innovation Officer. I've been there. I haven't been at Beezwax for 30 years, but I have more than 30 years experience. I've been using FileMaker since 2.1. At Beezwax, these are kind of like some old numbers. I don't even know what the current numbers are. I pulled these from a slide because I did a presentation earlier this week, and I realized I didn't introduce myself. So for those who don't know me or Beezwax, we have over 500 clients, 1,500 projects. We do Tableau work. We do web integration, web development, IT, DevOps, and FileMaker work. So we're over 100 people, by the way. We're a large team, and sometimes new people come, some people go. So there's quite an activity going on lately, which is a very interesting dynamic. So we have a blog that's very popular, and so let me go back here. You can find it at beezwax.net/blog. And there's a lot of times I was actually approached in Antwerp when I was there last November by someone who said, I needed to do something, and I found the answer on your blog, and he was very grateful and told me that it helped him in his project. But so a lot of our web developers publish blog posts, our Tableau developers publish blog posts, our FileMaker devs. So there's a lot of content that's going on there, more and more. So welcome you to check it out. So tonight's agenda, we're just going to cover a brief history of InspectorPro, some workflow comparisons between 7 and 8, which are very, very different. Processing comparisons as well. And then we'll go through a demo, feature comparison if we have time, on recap. Okay, so a brief history of InspectorPro. And before I do the walkthrough here, so this is Inspector 3.1. This goes back a long, long ways. It had some really nice features in there. Inspector 4 came along. We redid the dashboard. These are old screenshots, so they might not be the best. And then we, tidy things up a little bit. We also had localization support at one point. Inspector 6, and now most recent shipping version is Inspector 7. 8 is the forthcoming release. So what I will say is that I tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist or a maniac, if you wish, but I tend to roll up my sleeves and try new things. And something didn't work, I re-architect it, whatever. And so I've re-architected the guts of Inspector. I would probably say, maybe not trivializing it, but maybe 4 or 5 times over the years. It's like starting from scratch or mostly from scratch. So I'll tell you a brief story. I worked on a project once, and we had a system in place for a team, and it was, it went through some iterations, and we made some changes to the system. and so on and so forth. And it was much better, after we spent time understanding the team itself, etc. It was interesting because when we stepped back and we completed the second phase of development, the manager came up to us and kind of looked at me and said, well, we're really happy with it. But he said, like, but why didn't you build it like that in the first place? And I'm not one for quick retorts because I'll and all this, but I kind of stood there kind of baffled by his statement. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a Mac user for a long time and he's a Mac user. So I said, well, Apple's been building Mac OS 10 for 10, 15 years now. We were at Mac OS 9 or, something like that. So it's gone through iterations of Mac OS 10.1, 10.2, 10.3. And I said, why didn't Apple just come out with 10.9? Why did I have to wait 10 years? And he clammed up. So anyway, that was my story. And so to the point of always tackling things in new light, I have this quote at the bottom left: always take a chance on better. It's from a book by Edward Catmull from Pixar, Creativity Inc. And this picture, sometimes I downloaded it from unsplash.com. It's sometimes used as my desktop, and it's an inspiration to me to always think about improving things. So in that light, let's look at a comparison between Inspector 7 and what is soon to be Inspector 8. So with Inspector 7, we have a hosted copy of Inspector, we have a hosted solution, and what we do with the solution is we ask the server to pull down the DDR. And so the DDR takes time, it's on the network, it takes time to generate. Then when you finally have it, we then send it back through Inspector to the server over the network to get processed. Downloading the DDR from the server, uploaded back to Inspector. It's not able to be scripted, it's not server compatible, it's very slow. And save as XML, this should serve as a warning to you all. When you switch over to save as XML, don't generate the save as XML on a hosted file of any size or complexity. It is dramatically slower for some reason. It takes a lot more time to generate. So you'd rather want to take advantage of the fact that you can generate it on the server, and that's much faster. So with the workflow in 8, what we have now is, and by the way, with version 8, we are officially switching over to use save as XML. And so when you have your solution and you generate the XML, it's generated on the server directly, and then it hands over the processing over to Inspector. And Inspector then gets to work right away on it and processes it. Okay, so save as XML is server compatible, and so you can have it run on the server. You can actually write a script schedule to have it generate every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, however you like. And so we also have an add-on that I'll show you in a second here. And so it integrates really easy into your solution, and you can take full advantage of the fact that, like, modest size solution may just take a few seconds to generate and then be processing. So with the add-on, you can add a comment and send that off, so you can add some comment to your analysis. InspectorPro doesn't even need to be open on the client for all of this to work. It could be seamless. It could run in the background, and it's very fast on server, like I said. So processing comparison. So this is the graph in Inspector 7. This is the graph in Inspector 8. They're dramatically different. So like I'll show this again here. This is 7, and this is 8. Okay, so some of the improvements and reductions in code that we had. So we had 339 tables, we're down to 242. So almost 30% reduction in tables. Almost 65% reduction in table occurrences, a almost 97% reduction in relationships. when Clay saw this slide at one of my presentations, he was like, wow, this file must open up really fast. I said, oh yeah, it's really fast. And then one of the core tables in Inspector is the dependency table. And we had almost a 70% reduction in the number of fields. And the dependency table, if you're ever looking for a place to make improvements, that would be the place to make improvements, because that's where all the activity happens. That's the intersection of like, this field is referenced by this script step, or this field is on this layout, et cetera, et cetera. So we had a dramatic drop in the number of fields that we need to represent that. And this diagram here shows like a screenshot on the left is version 7, screenshot on the right is version 8. And so a dramatic difference in a wide table to a very narrow table for a table that is very heavily used. One of the main features or benefits of 8 is the fact that, like, when we were doing stuff with 7, every analysis was gobble up everything. So you run an analysis and then it gobbles up, 27,000 items, 8,800 calculations, and 15,000 dependency records across all those things. And then you do a second analysis and that's gobbling up everything all over again. And the first time it might take 2 minutes. After 100 analysis, it might take 10, 15 minutes. It slows down, and it's not unrealistic to end up with millions and millions of rows across all those tables. With Inspector 8, this changes a lot of things, because what we do with the first analysis is we take everything, but then what we do is we're able to find and locate only the things that have changed and update those. Okay, so then that means, like, it's literally just a few seconds to find the places and update them, and then we're doing some post-processing and dependency updates. But the big difference is, like, you go from something like 18 hours and millions of rows of data to like 10 minutes after 100 analyses, and you're basically your footprint, I like to refer to as like one-to-one with your solution. So, like, if you have a system where you're refactoring code and reducing your footprint of the code that's in there, you're actually getting smaller and smaller, and it's representative of the system that you have. So your code base is actually the representation of your code base in Inspector is actually one-to-one. If you have like 10 scripts and you remove 2 of them, you'll end up with 8 scripts. And so the other benefit is that you're not taking up all that storage space, and every analysis is just a fraction of time than what it used to be. So again, comparison of 7 to 8, we'd end up with millions of rows. At the bottom here, we have the blue stuff representative of the items that you have in Inspector 8. So baseline is up to 5 times faster. Incrementals are incredibly faster, just because they're not pulling in everything. And there's some really great stuff in the Save as XML. They have these new areas. It's like a different structure to the XML. They have these catalog areas, and the catalogs have these modification counts. They both have them in the catalog and in the items. And basically that's how we scan the areas, different catalogs. We find the changes and we narrow in and zoom in on where the changes are, and then we update our data for that. There's also some new things in the Save as XML that we never had before in the DDR. There are representation of layout parts. And so a part is like a top navigation, a body part, et cetera, and all the objects that are contained within each of those parts. So for example, in Inspector 7, there wasn't a way in the DDR to have a dependency for a field that's used in a sub-summary part. And that's not the case anymore with Save as XML, because that field that is used in a sub-summary part would be represented in this structure. The other thing that we have is we also have table occurrence notes that are captured. And so you can put, like I like to do, put emojis everywhere, and they just come through just fine. So you can put emojis in script steps and calculations, table occurrence notes, anywhere you like. And the XML brings those or carries those or over just fine. So let's look at a demo and some of the reasons for using what now I like to say is, save as XML. So metadata auditing, we now have the ability to do change history, references and dependencies like we always had, problem detection. We have a lot of detailed information or the current state of an item. And then one of the main mantras of this version was to really keep you in the zone, which is if you're developing, you want to stay focused in doing your development work. You don't want to have to, oh, I need an answer to something. I need to generate this, but it takes 10 minutes and it takes time. And I need to just stay focused and do my work. So again, you can have script schedule that runs every frequency that you decide to snapshot the XML in the background so developers can just do their work and the processing happens in the background. Or you can have developers take the snapshot and it gets out of the way right away. Integrations with Slack and other dev tools. We have a lot of team collaboration features, ongoing notes and tags, automation capabilities, and we have some API integrations that you'll see with the add-on. So first off, when you're an inspector, top right, there's the new solution. You click the button. So this is where you set up your new solution. And then you'll get a number. Like in this case, on the far left, there is a number, a solution ID. That's 472. Let's say I create a new file and I want to integrate with Inspector. Really, really easy. We have this add-on that we built. And so you just add the add-on into your system, and this will add a script, a layout, a table, and yeah, maybe a couple of scripts, I think. So and so once you have it added to your system and you run it, it'll bring up a card window, and all you need to do is just put in that solution ID number, 472. As long as this file is hosted on the same server as Inspector, and it's like considered a dev server for that matter, then all you need to do is when you run the integration is just type a message here, hit return, and it will process on the server and get out of your way. And we'll see a few examples of that forthcoming shortly. That's it. That's the integration. It's not hard at all, and it's pretty seamless. So there's three actually. I'll pause this for just a second. I want to talk about this, and that is that just like I showed that there's that integration in the file, there's still three different methods that you can kick off the analysis. And there's a manual upload, there's the window names, and then there's API integration. If you install the add-on, then you use the middle one. But if you haven't installed the add-on, you can use the manual upload or the window names. So like this one is showing an example of uploading an XML that I had previously generated. Think of it as like the way you would do this before, which is with the DDR, you would save the DDR and then you'd upload it. So this is if you have a file locally and you send it up for processing. Okay, so now the same thing, like I'm gonna make a few changes here and then I'm gonna ask it to run the XML, but I'm gonna ask it to run the XML from the window names. So like in this case, I just give it the window names in the bottom field, and then I type in a message, hit run, and this will see that you have a window named meetings. It will generate the XML for that file and then send it to Inspector. And I'm gonna let it run here for a little bit, but just to give you a feel or a taste for how slow this is, you definitely do not want to do this on a hosted system of any complexity, because this process takes a long, long time. So I'm going to fast forward this because this is the full duration of it. So that's how long it takes. Now it's inserting the file. And once it's inserted the XML file, it's going to turn over the processing to the script that an inspector that runs it, and then it completes. And then the last integration here is really basically going to make some more changes, and then I'm going to run it, but I'm going to run it with the integration, which means that InspectorPro talks to this file using FMP URL and runs a script in that file. And so there's the options down below that you can configure, but they type in a message, hit return, and it gets out of the way immediately. Runs the script is running on server, the XML is generated, it processes, and it's already done. So now if I look at it, I look at those changes, it'll tell me like what got changed. So I added a layout object and modified some objects and deleted one. Okay, so let's move on to the next item. So once you have data in Inspector, we also have the option to kind of clear it out. So let's say you have a system that you've been analyzing and you have 100 analyses or thousands of analyses. Again, it's not going to take up as much room as it used to in 7, but you can reset it. And resetting it, all it does is it gets rid of all the analysis data and the history data, but it keeps the members that are part of that, and it keeps any notes or tags that were associated with any item. And then this part here, what I'm showing here, is that you're also able to remove that solution entirely. So with Inspector 7, the interface was a list of solutions on the left and a list of analyses. But with Inspector 8, because there's so many analyses that you can run, we never show you the actual analyses in this window here. You're actually seeing them in a different area. But what you're seeing is every row behind here is actually a row for the solution. And it gives you the current state of that solution. So what I'm showing here is you can actually reset your solution to start over. Let's say you do a sprint of work and you want to start over and start tracking the analyses from that point, or you can actually just remove your solution. And with any of these buttons that you see here, you can hit the escape key to exit, or you can hold the option key to bypass the dialogues. And so like it saves you some time. Sorry, I jumped ahead here. Let me go back. So this one here, yeah, sorry. I clicked the wrong arrow and I jumped ahead, unfortunately. So this is resetting, and then this one here, I'm going to delete it. And so if I'll let this play. So again, I'm holding the option key down, I hit delete, and it won't give me the dialogue. It'll just remove the solution on the server and get rid of all the data. So that's resetting and deleting a solution on the list of solutions that you have in Inspector. Okay, staying in the zone. I talked about this before, but this is so valuable and important that I'll kind of let the video play a little bit and then talk over it. So I'm going to change some of the attributes of this layout. So change the name of the layout. I'll toggle some of these some other attributes and enable quick find on the layout. I change the table occurrence context of the layout, and then I'm going to run the integration. So sometimes I like to refer to this as actually I'm making one more change. Delete that object on the layout, and so now run the integration. I held the option key down, so you didn't even get the opportunity to see that you can enter a comment, but you'll see that I had all these attributes that were changed. It writes them out, each of the changes that were done. And then you'll also see on the left there, you see the number of options that were modified and number of items that were deleted. So in this case, I'm going to make some changes to security. I'm going to look at Julia's account. I'm going to change her privilege set. I'm going to change the description, and then I'm going to run it. So again, with the integration, you can just hold the option key down. But if you want to type a message, you'll get the dialogue to write a message out. So here I see the changes I made to that account. Okay. There's different places you can get access to this information. So like For example, if I go look at the dashboard and I go look at accounts, and then you'll see Julia on the far right. There's a history button that shows up, that gets lit up when there are changes. And this tells you like a little bit of what happened. So from the bottom up, let me pause it there for a second. Let me show you. So what you see is from the bottom up, you'll see a blue bar on the left to indicate this item, in this case, this account existed when you did your first analysis. And then whenever a change happened, it gets inserted in the middle here, and you see who did it and when, and what the changes were. So the description got changed from what you see on the left to what it is on the right, and then you have the privilege set ID and the privilege set name that got changed. And then at the top, you have this purple bar to say, this account or this field, this item still exists in the solution. If I play it, I'm going to go ahead and make some other changes. So I'm going to change the privilege set again. I'm going to add some more text. And I'm going to run it. This time I'm going to put in a comment. So sometimes I like to say that it takes longer to write the comment than to kick it off. So there it is. I'm looking at. So I don't know if you noticed that, but that happened like right away. So let me back that up so that you can see it. So I ran it. Okay, so as soon as I click the button here on the process to run it, you'll see in the background, like I'll pause it there. You'll see this text. This is the description. I'm looking at the list of accounts. I'm looking at Julia's account. Again, what Inspector is doing is it's generating XML for the file on the server. It's scanning that XML to see what catalogs were changed. It finds the catalog with the changes. Then it scans the items in the catalog that got changed. Then it processes those and updates the record respected to that change. And so you'll see it almost happen immediately there. And that got changed. And then if you click on the history button, you'll see, like I said, all the changes. So this other change happened a little bit later, and so on and so forth. So now if I go in and I delete the Julia's account, get rid of it, and I process this, okay? So it's running. You'll see this the row disappeared. Julia's account got removed. Now the only way to actually search that would be to do a global search. And one of the cool things with global search is we added the ability to search not only on schema and calculations that we had in the past, but we added the ability to search on history. And why that's important, because in this case, once the account is gone, there's no way to find that again in the list, because again, Inspector is keeping track one-to-one based on what you have in your system. And so, so the only way to find it would be to go do a search in the history, because in the history, we're keeping track of all the changes that are occurring, right? Who did them when, what was the item that was changed. And so in this case now, from the bottom up, again, we see that blue bar on the left. We see the account Julia existed when the baseline import happened. If the bar was green, that would mean that during these analyses, you added the account on some analysis number, and it would tell you that. It would say the account Julia was added by so-and-so in analysis number 47. And so then you know it was added at a certain point in time. And then if there were changes, they would show up in the middle, who did them, what was changed, when. And then at the top, you'd get the information as to the account still exists or the account was removed. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions about any of this section here. All good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right, so that's a little bit about the history tracking. And, you know, you can get a sense as to, you know, it running, you know, kind of running, getting it out of the way, and you continue doing your work. So this is also a screenshot of pulling up the list of analyses. And if you look here, this column here tells you whether it was a scheduled event that happened to run the processing, or whether it was manual, and how long it took to run. Okay, so in this case, 6.4 seconds, 4 seconds, 1 second, etc. Right. So we have in this run that was a scheduled event, there was 1 addition, 2 modifications, and 1 deletion. So those are items, but that doesn't mean. So if you have a modification, you could have about 10 or 20 modifications. But sorry, you could have a modification like a layout changed, but you could have 10 or 20 attributes of that layout that got changed. So it's just showing you the numbers of items that got added, modified, or deleted, but there could be a lot of detail under the modification option. So let's look at something else called layout styles, and we had this in Inspector 7 too. So for example, I have a layout here, and this layout has the first object on the left is a default style. The next group is theme styles. And then we have a group of objects that were saved as a style, but not saved into the theme. So layout style and then local style, as we refer to them. So if I go look at that layout, and I can search with it with Logicator to find it, and then go to the style section, you'll see that I have 1 default, 5 themed, and 5 layout objects, and 10 local styles. All right, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to go back to the layout. I'm going to make some changes to those objects. So I'm going to select all these and make them a theme style. And then I'm going to select all these other ones and also give them a theme style. So now I should get rid of all my layout style objects and my local styled objects. So I just ran it. I'm going to run it. I can run it from Inspector. And so now it's running and processing, and then we'll see is number 5 and 10 disappear, and number 20. So those are the counts of objects that are on that layout. And so now I have 1 default styled object and 20 themed objects. Any questions about this? This is like kind of as you go, you're getting insight and information that's being rendered behind the scenes for you, and you can keep working. So it's this whole concept of staying in the zone. We also have the ability to add users to your InspectorPro instance, so that you can add different team members, and they can have different levels of access. And the access levels are basically, you have an admin role, and then you have a user role. And if you use Slack, you can put in a Slack member ID, and then there's opportunity to send out Slack notifications. So I'm entering a person here, Tony Menanno, and let's say he's an admin. He'll be able to create and delete solutions. But if he's a user, then if I choose the option to allow this user to create and edit delete solutions, they will be able to do that only on solutions that they've created. Otherwise, if I just leave it like this, when they get added to a solution, they can only see that solution. Okay, and then you can add people here, select a person, select a role, and then go ahead and add that user as a member of that solution. And so you can work collaboratively as a team to work on a solution that's hosted in Inspector. Any questions about this? We're good? Okay, moving on. Locating items. Sometimes, so you have a layout and it's got a lot of complexity, and you have an object that's inside a panel. So like this text object is at 433, 235, and that's absolute position. But what the XML generates is the relative position. So if I go look at that layout, and I go do a search for that layout, and I bring up all the objects that are on that layout, and I'll see that text object that's inside that panel, 1578. But you see, if you hover over it, it'll tell you the absolute position of the object. So And if you click on the green arrow, it gives you the hierarchy of the object so that you can locate the object. So if I move the object out of the container that it's in and rerun it, so you'll see in the background there, it'll move out from there and it'll show up on its own, so to speak. It's not now, it now is no longer contained inside that panel. And if you look, the change that happened to the object is the parent object type went from a panel to nothing. Okay, so if I put it back into the tab panel and run it, you'll see that the object will now move back into the tab panel and be part of that group. So that's a great way to be able to locate items that are either problematic or need some fixing or whatnot. And it's also a great way to know that an object is within a portal or not within a portal, etc. So and you can tell by the change history on the item as well. Okay, so next, additional information and problems. So we have, sometimes we have this, too much information to convey in just a list. And so we have these popovers, like a perfect example is layouts and all the script triggers that are associated with a layout. This has 3 script triggers associated with this layout, and you can see them listed here in this popover panel. And the other thing that we did is we added different sections that you can navigate to because there's not enough room to show all the attributes of a particular item. So we break it out into different sections. And we continue to do work to improve getting access to that information. So you can either do a search with Logicator to find a particular item that you're looking for, and get the results of all the items that have that attribute turned on or whatnot. But we group things into different sections, like I shown before, with a section for styles that was dedicated just for styles for all the objects on a layout. And so we have another area here called settings. So the other thing that we do is we improve the readability and discoverability of problems that are associated with an object. So in this case, we have this layout. It has these 2 script triggers. These script triggers are missing. And so it tells you what those problems are for this layout. Okay, we also have the ability to, kind of an interesting and unique thing, and it's kind of a desire of mine to be able to do more interactivity with the solution that's hosted. So if you wish, Inspector is kind of a reflection of the current state of your system. And so, for example, in this meetings file, if I go look at the schema, you'll see that in this action items table, I have these 3 fields that are indexed: status, due date, and subject. In Inspector, those fields are there, and you'll see the index. It says they're indexed with all. We have this option to drop the indexes right from Inspector. So if you have like a table, either on the found set or on the selected record, so I'm going to drop them one at a time. So I'm going to drop this one
In a minute.
and there's still some interface work to do. So that's gone. I haven't run the analysis yet, but you'll see that in just a second. So I'm going to drop those 3. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and reprocess now. I'm going to go ahead and reprocess, and then you're going to look at those indexes and they're going to be gone. Okay, so like I'm able to control that right from Inspector. Okay, so like let's say you have, over time, a lot of people search on different fields and you don't need those to be indexed. Some like to actually just turn off the ability to create indexes automatically, but you also have the power right now with Inspector to go ahead and drop those indexes. Okay, so I find that a cool feature. I've asked for the ability to have deep linking, and deep linking would be the ability to, for example, everything that you see in the XML is referenced for Inspector's point of view by a UUID, a unique identifier. And so one of the things I've asked for is the ability to say, hey, I have this field, or I have this layout object that has these problems. Take me to that item. And so there would be a URL that you can execute that would take you right to that layout, open the layout editor and open up, some dialogue that has the problem that you want to fix and go right to that item. So I hope that would one day happen, because this would be a great addition, and in a bi-directional fashion too. So you could go from inspector to an item, or you can go from an item that you have to go find out who changed the item over time, etc. So in both directions. And something truly amazing that we'll be able to do soon. This is new. I've started showing this because we got this up and running. We're able to connect Inspector to GitHub, or to Git. I don't know how many of you know Git and are familiar with it, but it's a very incredible tool. So for example, I have this script, and I'm going to add a script step that has a couple emojis in it. I'm going to change some items of this script. I'm going to change this install menu. I'm going to change this calculation, and I'm going to click OK. I'm going to save the script. Actually, delete that other step. I'm going to save this script, and then it's not finished in terms of the full integration process, because I'm still doing some things manually, but the whole thing is going to be automated when we're done. But so here it is. I'm writing a comment, and I'm running it, and so then the script gets saved in Inspector. And then what I have to do is actually still have to do some things manually. I have to write out the file and then commit it or push it into Git. But that's going to all happen kind of in a seamless process. So the end result is you'll be able to, let's see, fast forward this a little bit. So here, the end result is you'll be able to go to here, and there's a little Git icon, and you can look at the current state of that script that got checked in to Git. Okay, so now this script has a commit that was sent by Menanno, myself. You can look at the blame history, so you can see all the changes, who did them. So Alec and I we were working on this together, and you'll see some of his changes in there. And the other thing you'll be able to see is the history. So like if I close these out, I go back to here, look at the history, and then you can just look at the most recent change and compare what the changes were from the prior version to now, and you'll see that that emoji line was added, and then some other changes that occurred. Okay, and the cool thing is you're leveraging all the power of what Git can do, and the real beauty is that, again, this whole model in 8 is that we're tracking the current state of things. So as the solution evolves, you're tracking only the changes, things got added or removed, and that's also going to be represented. If you want to, you can also tag on the ability to tap into all the power that Git can deliver to software development. So this is something we're really excited about, and I think it's going to transform our management of solutions and track, what changes we're doing, and be able to go back and say, oh, like that calculation was changed and it broke things. Let's go back and get a copy of that calculation and put it back in place or whatever. So that's it. I have this feature comparison that I could go through, but it's long and detailed, and it just compares 7 to 8, but I can skip that, and I can just go to kind of just a recap real quick. But I'm open to whatever you guys want to do at this point. Take questions. I don't feel like it's a useful purpose of our time to look and compare 7 to 8. You've seen a lot of it, and I think I can just take some questions and do a recap, and we can be done. Any comments, thoughts?
I do have a question, Vince, on like you have that like process button on the layouts and things. Is that something that's just there for the sake of your demo, or is that something where like developers could add to a solution that they're using on?
That's something that developers can add. Like, so where was it here? So integration options. I didn't show that, but let me show that right now. Let's see here. So like I'll create a new solution. I'll call this assets file. I'll put it on my desktop, and I'll go to layout mode, and I'll go to add-ons, and I'll add that inspector add-on, and I'll just I'll drop it here on the bottom corner. So I'll just drop it over here, and that just installs these scripts. It installed this table with this information in there, and then it installs this layout, and the layout that you'll see is from this card window. So when I click on this, I get a card window, and this is where you configure it. You just put in your solution ID for that solution that is inspector. So 158 is a solution ID that got generated when you created that solution for this assets file. And then all you need to do, once you've done that, you never need to touch that again. All you do is you type a message here, hit return, and off it goes. So you can do it a number of ways. One is, again, you can hold the option key down. I don't want to type a message. I just want you to run it. So it just runs, no message. Otherwise, if you do run it, you type a message, hit return, and off it goes.
Okay.
Answer your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, so I'll just do my recap, and then we can chat about other things if you like. So recap is one of the goals with Inspector 8 is to be able to keep you in the flow of your development, get out of the way. It's re-architected from the ground up. It's a one-to-one representation of the current state of what you have in your solution. And I just showed one file, but it could be several files. They all get processed. If there's changes to those files, they'll know where to find those changes, etc., and update them. It has history tracking and attribution, so you can tell what changed, who changed it, when. There's notes and tags on things. I didn't show this, still a work in progress, but you can add notes to any item. So for example, you can add a comment to a field, but you can't add a comment or a note to a value list, let's say, or you can't add necessarily a note to, let's say, a layout. So you can add notes to anything at all, and even a layout object for that matter. And those notes can be added by any user, so you can have one or more notes on a particular item. And then if you reset your solution, the notes, you have the option to keep the notes, and the tags will just stay around. And whenever you run and you start analyzing over again, those notes reconnect themselves back to where they were. So you don't lose any of that work that you did for those. Again, we have attribution, we have logicator search built in like we used to in 7. We have not only logicator search, but we have global search. We have getting integration support that I covered. And then with this release, we're also moving to subscription-based pricing. So, that's a big change for us. We, again, global search, and we have new capabilities because we've embraced Save as XML. And so catalogs, attribution, layout parts, table occurrence notes. And this is just really setting the stage for a lot of cool innovation to follow. So, we have this architecture, we're going to build on top of it. We're really excited to get it out and start using it internally, and also get everyone else who's interested in using it, getting it into their hands. And so that's it. We have a preview, hopefully, that's coming, but we're still kind of a little bit more work to do. And it would require that you are using the ETS version of FileMaker, or when the next release ships, because a lot of what I've shown you, Inspector 8 relies on the Save as XML, and a lot of the changes that they've done to the XML have been through ETS recently, and those changes are finally getting surfaced and the next release. So when that comes out, then that's going to be the base version that you'll be needing to use this this tool. And that concludes my presentation. So if you have any other things you want to talk about or questions you want to ask, I'm happy to stick around.
Okay. Well, I guess, thank you, first off.
Okay.
For joining us. I know being that this is the first meeting after everybody that attended Engage has had a chance to get together. I know we can spend a little bit of time just getting thoughts on the experience and all of that. You're welcome to share your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I can stick around for a little bit longer. Happy to do so. Yeah.
So anybody want to jump in and go first on Engage thoughts? I'm sorry, I gotta like consciously make myself say Engage because I still want to call it DevCon.
Yeah. Yep. Stephen, go ahead. Sorry, I don't mean to be the host, but Stephen has his hand raised. So
2 or 3 things about Engage. A couple of quick items. Congratulations, Vince, first to you for your receipt of the Achievement Award. And
Thank
also congratulations to Todd and Teresa for very excellent programs. I've heard a lot of good comments about both of your all sessions. I want to encourage people when the videos become available, which hopefully will be rather soon, to be sure that you take a look at Wim DeCourt's session about security as a mindset, not a checklist. It is sadly becoming obvious again that a number of people in the community are unaware of a number of security issues surrounding the FileMaker platform. And Wim discusses a number of these in his presentation. We may have some other material coming later, but when that video becomes available, I would warmly encourage you to view it. So that's all that I have to say.
how many people, thanks, Stephen. How many people did go to Claris Engage?
There's
5 here.
5 of us here.
Okay. And then Stephen and I were there. Cool. Jay mentioned to me that it's kind of probably a good idea to frame it in the light of, because we're starting over, it's probably not a great comparison to do like DevCons of the past necessarily, but we're now, you know, Claris Engage version 1, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so kind of looking at it in its own light. There are some pros and cons about the location, but it was overall, I thought, you know, getting to spend time with people was so valuable. FaceTime, chatting, conversations, ideas, etc. I think that was really, really great. And I thought, you know, the whole marketing side seemed to really be taking it up a notch in a lot of ways. It just looked like marketing was getting a real handle on things, and a lot is going on there. And I'm very hopeful to see what's going to come from that in the future.
I think overall, at least from my perspective, it was a very positive experience. I mean, like you said, definitely differences, but still, I think if you make it work, you were going to be able to make it work to have a good experience. So. I thought the domain was pretty cool too. Just, you know, having a space to just walk in the evening or whatever is just walk around and see what they had. That was my first time in Austin, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
Big fan of Velvet Taco down there.
I'm on their mailing
there
list.
was a few podcasts or things that let me see if I can find them and I'll post them. But there's a podcast that Matt Navarre did about a few kind of FileMaker Engage Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. So worth listening to for different points of view from different people. So let me see if I can copy the link. I'll paste it here. There was also some new things that are going on. Alexis Allen has a podcast that she's doing. Everyone Can Design. Everyone Can Design. With some of you might remember him, Matt Odell. Right. So they're doing a podcast together, and there's some great things going on there. So I'll post that link. And then one of our developers at Beezwax had a session on the sandbox file. I don't know if anybody went to it, but there was some really good follow-up from different people on that. It's really, I encourage you to check out his talk. It's something that we use internally at Beezwax when we build systems. We build systems with this kind of local file idea. So I'm not going to go into the details of it here. I encourage you to listen to it at some point. But very creative use of being able to have your own cache of your data that you can modify and edit or create and then submit and transact so that your user experience can be much, much more fluid. So I encourage you to check that out as well.
Anybody else have?
Go ahead.
We were actually discussing it offline before the meeting officially started, so maybe we talked ourselves out.
So I wonder where the next Engage will be.
Yeah.
They'll do the same place
Yeah,
again.
do you think we'll be back in Austin again, or is it too early to tell?
Oh, they were building some other building. I don't know what was going on. There was some construction going on when we were there. And who knows, maybe it's a bigger facility, but you know, it'll be interesting to see where we end up next. I overheard some mention of it's not going to happen in the summer again. It's just too hot or whatever, but don't take my word for it. But so yeah, maybe another facility at Apple, who knows?
I know from Western Pennsylvania, getting to go to someplace warm in February was kind of nice.
Yeah.
But
I think summer is just so hard with vacations and people traveling and, you know, kids being home. Although the alternative is during the school year, it's hard and kids traveling and, you know what I mean? So it's like a catch-22, right? Yeah. Yeah, I know, unfortunately, right?
You know, the other thing that I kind of you know, reflected on is a couple of years ago, Brad stood up on stage, and I don't remember when this was, or it was virtually at some point. I guess it had to be virtual, but said that, you know, without developers, they're really nothing. You know, it's really the combination of together we build great things, or I forget the tagline that was on the back of the t-shirt, but you know, really reiterating this commitment or understanding or you know, thought that they have about the developer community, that the developer community really, we make the solutions shine for our customers, and so like they're like, we're their customers in a sense, right? And so there's more listening. There's a lot of activity in terms of you know, feedback, sharing, and listening. And I don't have the link to it. I don't know if Stephen, you have the link to it, but there's the ongoing things that they're working on, the backlog, as they call it. And you can actually see, like, okay, these are things that are being worked on that are in the ETS right now that are being tested. And these are things that are going to be worked on. You know, ever since we've gone agile, it's incredible because I'm on ETS and you see some new things coming, and there's like a release like a 19.4, 19.5, whatever. And don't be fooled. Those point releases are major releases. There's a lot going on. Like there's some big new features that got added in like what seems to be like a point release, but it's just incredible. Like just trying to keep up with all the things to test and try and work with. So there's it's very, very busy. And I think as Lucy said, or someone said at the conference, it's a great time to be a FileMaker developer. So, and we're going to try and make it even a whole lot better. Yeah.
Good. So, any other DevCon thoughts, or any just FileMaker discussion?
You mean engage?
Or
Yeah.
that thing went to Austin.
I think it was interesting to see a lot of the AI focus and to see where it's
yeah.
gonna go. I think there was a lot less, we talked about this, like under the hood session, which was, so it was more broader discussion or more business kind of discussion. So it'll be interesting to see what next year looks like. Because I think that there's
Yeah.
just so much new coming, like how does Connect work with Studio? How does Studio work with AI? How does all that work with FileMaker? And so it's like a lot of things happening, but how do they all coexist and help and support? I think we're still learning as we go, right? And I'm not sure, and maybe it's just me because I'm on the developer side, but I'm still trying to put them together to make a pie, and I'm not quite sure what it is yet. Does that make sense? I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one experiencing that. Maybe it's just me, because I'm just not sure how they all interconnect or.
It's not just you.
Okay, I just thought, okay, maybe it's me, but you know, because I think there's so much merit to each piece of it. I just don't know how to put it together to make it better for us, you know?
Right, but you have to have that use case and then have the time to play.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then play and fit the pieces together and see how you can iron it all out.
Yeah, because if you don't have the time, you're going to go back to what you know.
Right.
So you're using some FileMaker hack you learned because of something you had to do in FileMaker 6, so you're still using that.
Right. And it feels like there's so much more to do, but we're so close, but yeah, not there yet, so.
Yeah, the AI stuff is definitely coming. And you know, people say AI is going to take your job away, whatever. But I heard a better quote than that, and that was, it's not AI that's going to take your job away. It's the one who knows how to make AI work that's going to take your job away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Valid.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, some really exciting stuff. We'll see how it evolves. And the interesting thing too is the shift in AI in terms of like when it first started, it's like, oh, everybody's like, oh, chat GPTing. And you know, so you realize like, oh, chat GPT on the corpus of data that exists outside, right? It's like out there. But what about all the data that exists in your system, right? And that's what really becomes powerful. To, you know, you have a client that has, I don't know, they manage events or something, you know, and they have all this history of all these events, and they have all the history of you know, some of the, you know, the feedback that went on at the event. They control that data and you know, infer or understand things that they could never infer before with AI by feeding all that data. So I read a paper, or part of a paper actually, about that if the domain of focus is very narrow, AI is like a superhuman level. If the domain of focus for AI to work on is like general or broad, as they call it, artificial general intelligence, and when that gets to be at a higher level, then it's just going to be amazing what's going to be possible. But right now, this domain, our domain of work for each individual client solutions, can be narrow focused. And because of that, we can do some pretty amazing things once we get our act together.
Yeah, Tim, you just posted a question about the facilities and the logistics. That was the one thing I was concerned about just getting back and forth from where the hotel was to the different, sites for the meetings. I know I lucked out and, I didn't have to wait long for a shuttle or feel the need to, get a lift because nobody was coming. So I didn't hear any horror stories, but, I'm sure it could have certainly happened. But overall, I thought the facility, other than the rooms being small, which was something we talked about before we got started here, was just like the breakout sessions, like there was only like one large room and all the other ones were in rooms that were, few of them were a little bit too small for the topic and the interest in what was being presented. Not perfect, but it was better than I thought it might be, I guess is what I'll say.
Yeah, with the shuttles, there was one day, I think on the first day, I was the only person on one of the shuttles going for registration. And then on the other day, what was like you, me, and that other guy from
Yeah.
Montana?
Yeah.
Like the three of us got on the shuttle and it's like, I guess that's it. All right. So it was, the shuttle stuff was a little bit odd, but it worked. We got where we needed to go.
Mhm. We were in the West and we're like, hey, where's the shuttle? They're like, well, what shuttle? Like, oh, thanks. Like, we were just like, let's wait outside. And then we
Yeah.
actually got a ride with someone from Claris. But yeah, it was little, again, I think if I had a critique, it would be the logistics side is definitely, the signage, the more visibility in terms of that in the communication, I think would have been more helpful. But it was great to see everyone. I think it was long overdue. It was like 4 years, I think, right? Was it 4?
Seems like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Actually 4.5 because it was August of 2019.
19.
Right.
So, but yeah, as far as the construction noise goes, I lucked out because all the sessions I went to were on the other side of the building away from the pile driver.
Oh, we were in the one session, all of a sudden you heard this loud bang and everyone went, hope that wasn't bad.
Any other engaged thoughts before I derail things in general direction? Okay, so the question I have for anybody that's able to answer, working with a client right now, it's a university, so very protective of their firewalls and what's open and all of that, and need to figure out what either ports need to be open or what sites need to be whitelisted to ensure that FileMaker server is able to ping and talk to the Claris licensing server, wherever that lives. Is anybody aware of any like white paper or knowledge base article on the community site that would outline that? Because I did a search for some information on the licensing server and couldn't find anything that was obvious, but maybe I was just not asking the right question or whatever.
So you're trying to get the Claris server where their information lives to speak to their on-prem or IaaS type server?
It's on-prem.
Okay.
Yeah, because like we're actually getting ready to upgrade them from FileMaker 19 to FileMaker 20. And for FileMaker 19, we actually had to contact Claris tech support to get an offline license certificate for the server. So that's always an option, but it would be nice if we could get them to where they could just use their regular license and actually have it ping or talk to the licensing server, whatever that information is that moves back and forth. So I just figured before I start calling Claris tech support, I'd start with you guys tonight.
So you kept getting the message that the license was expired because
License
they
was
couldn't call home
Yeah,
to
because they couldn't call
verify it.
home, yeah. So like I said, we were able to resolve it, but it takes an extra day or so. And then if you do happen to change the licensing, then the server doesn't know that, hey, you've got more concurrencies or whatever the case might be. So just trying to, since we're getting ready to move to a new Windows OS and new thoughts, or should I just get on the phone with tech support?
Call tech support.
Call tech support.
You know who you can reach out to is Patrick.
Okay.
Patrick Cranston. He helped us with some of our stuff when we still had the on-prem server a while ago. He helped us with opening ports and stuff. So I don't recall what we did initially because we had an on-prem server and then we went to IaaS. So I'm not, and then now we're all, SharePoint, but, or we're software as a service, but I could go back and look at what we did. We might have some stuff from a while ago. Some things may have changed, but at least we can go back and look at some more stuff.
All right, thanks. Just figured I'd ask.
Yeah. It's been a while, but yeah.
Well, I just did a quick look through some of the stuff, papers that I had left or files I had left. And I don't have anything related to being able to phone home wasn't something we had to do before. I didn't have to worry about it anymore. So sorry, I can't help.
That's okay. Yeah, you retired folks aren't worth anything, Ken.
Hey,
Sorry. I say that with all kindness, Ken. We love you. Anybody else have one more thing or a question to ask?
Is anyone in any of the kitchens for Claris at all? Okay. I was curious if anyone would be in like the AI kitchen or anything that they're doing there.
Guess while you are all thinking, hopefully I can remember what I had on my slides. Because it would be too hard for me to get up to the computer to pull the slides up. Had a couple announcements. One of them was, and Vincent already mentioned it himself, was one of the big things that they did at Engage was they announced the backlog, where you can actually go in and see. It's on the community site, so it's not open to the public necessarily, but as long as you have a login for the click, which is free for Claris community, you can get in there and check that out. So I'll be sure to include that along with the other links that we're seeing as part of the follow-up email that I'll hopefully get out sometime on Friday. So you can be looking at that and seeing if whatever thing is driving you crazy is going to be fixed in the next release. I think what they're saying with the backlog is it's either things they're actively working on or at least are in the pipeline for the next like 2 quarters. And then the other public service announcement was, I'm sure everybody got it, was end of February, they released the security updates for FileMaker Server 2023, FileMaker Pro, and then also for FileMaker Server 19.6. It's 0.4 is the subversion, but there's some important updates there that you want to consider upgrading. So those were the 2 announcements. Our next meeting will be April 3rd. Happens to be somebody's birthday. There might be cake. So it'll be the 3rd. The agenda is still in process, so we'll have an email out in a couple of weeks with what the agenda will be. And then there are 2 conferences that if you love to engage and want to talk more FileMaker with groups of people, there's the Build, Grow, Learn. I think I got that right, which is a conference that's being organized in Greenville, South Carolina, runs Monday the 15th through Wednesday the 17th. Definitely has more of a like small business entrepreneur type focus. Each time slot from the schedule that I saw online is that there's a technical session and then another like more business focused session. So that's coming up. And then also, I know registration is not open for it yet, but Pause on Error is going to be held I think the first full week of October. I think it starts on Monday this year down in the foothills of Georgia.
Same place.
Same place. So that's those 2 things. And then also the last important or date to remember is that Ghostbusters Frozen Empire hits theaters on March 27th. Circle that one too.
there you go.
Pause on Error is interesting. The website is now not Pause on Error, it's Pause with Us. I think. Am I wrong? Yeah, no, it's Pause with Us. It's no longer Pause on Error.
Yeah. I think I did know.
Yeah.
I wonder why. I wonder why that changed. Anybody have any ideas?
I do not.
I could guess they wanted to get the word error out of there because it's got a connotation of,
Yeah, but that was always the
I mean, I'm
part of
guessing.
it because it was, a function of the system. I mean, it
get
makes
it.
sense if you're a FileMaker help.
I know no one
Just
told me.
curious.
I didn't hear anyone say anything at
There's this one.
Engage.
So I think that is all I had to add. Has anybody thought of?
I will sign off. Thank you very much for having me.
Bye.
All the
Thank
best.
you.
See you,
You're
Vince.
welcome. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye, Stephen.
Anything else, or is that a wrap?
I don't have anything else.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us that were out there in Zoom land. So, see you all next month.
All right.
Oh, I just want to say happy birthday, Beth. That's all.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too, Kim. We'll
Bye,
see you.
Kim.
Yeah, bye.
That concludes this meeting of FMburgh. We thank you for joining us. Also extend a special thanks to Vince for an excellent presentation, and for Thomas and Teresa from Profile Developers for sharing and facilitating the Zoom meeting tonight. Have a great day, everybody.